Welcome to Coffee, Cannabis, and Consciousness, extemporaneously known as the C3 Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Reno. Alongside me is my co-host, Ian Thompson. How you doing today, Ian?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? I am really excited to be back, enjoying this to the fullest, having a great day, in good spirits, and excited to try some new coffee and some new cannabis, talk about some deep shit. We got a good show for you, folks. This week on our show, we're sampling Yup Coffee Roasters out of Florence, Mass. That's Y-U-P, Yup Coffee Roasters. And it's their Honduras Manos de Mujer. Sorry for my lack of accent, but it stands for Hands of a Woman, which has probably a little bit to do with the company itself. And then, Ian, you want to tell the people what we're trying for the cannabis today?
Yeah, so I stopped by Verb is the herb in Easthampton, and I picked up some GG4, some Gorilla Glue 4, grown by Sierra Naturals. So it's actually grown out east and out in Somerville and Needham and shit, out towards Boston.
Yeah, guys, listen, we're going to get right into it. We've got it steeping in the French press. We're excited to try this out. This is Yup Coffee Roasters.
Yup.
Their Honduras Manos de Mujer roast. And let's give it a pour.
I like the bag. The bag's got a nice aesthetic.
Yeah, and we'll post it, guys, so you can kind of see, what to look for on the shelves at the grocery store when if you want to try this coffee out. I got this at the new River Valley Co-op in Easthampton, which just opened up.
The co-op.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. Nice and clean and
Where?
well maintained.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah. As far as Yup Coffee Roasters, let me give you guys a little bit of background about them. So, Yup Coffee Roasters is a family-run roastery and cafe overlooking the picturesque Mill River in Florence, Massachusetts, just minutes from downtown Northampton. We roast organic fair trade coffees in small batches and serve them at our on-site cafe alongside pastries, bagels, soup, tea, and beautiful views of the river. You can also find our coffee in many local grocery stores, markets, cafes, and restaurants. We're family-owned and operated and proud to be part of a community of vibrant local businesses in Western Mass. So stop by the roastery and enjoy the sights and sounds of the river over a great cup of coffee. So that's their quote-unquote mission statement.
I was going to say, that's very...
Yeah.
It's very... what's that guy's name in Seinfeld who that Elaine works for, and she writes all the clothing descriptions? J. Peterman catalog. That's like a description from like a J. Peterman catalog.
I know. It's like, hey, that's like they were like, hey, can you like make a template for our website? We'll just use this one, this paragraph. But let me see. Their website's actually pretty nice, guys. It's got a little things here. Quick disclosure, just so you know, if you are curious about checking their roastery and cafe, unfortunately, it is closed to the public for the remainder of 2021.
Okay, fair enough.
They're still operating. The business is still going strong. But, as far as an on-site cafe, it is not available right now. But that doesn't mean you can't support local business by going to the grocery store and picking this up off the shelf. It's very identifiable. You guys will see it. And, let's get right into the taste.
I get a sweet smell from it. Almost like graham crackery.
I kind of get like almost like a fruity taste. Yeah, I'm getting a fruity, maybe cherry.
Yeah,
like cherries.
Yeah.
You ever have like a chocolate covered or like chocolate cherry?
Yeah.
Like that kind of.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I could see that. Yeah, because it does kind of like feel like have like a dark chocolate taste to it as well.
Very dark. Very like.
It is dark.
Very in your face. Yeah.
Pretty smooth on the back end though. Like I feel like it's strong in the front. Finishes smooth.
Yeah, it gets your attention, man.
It
gets
does.
your attention.
It perks you up, but it's not as acidic as at first as I thought it would be. After a couple sips, I was like,
Yeah, it doesn't have that citrusiness to the last cup, with Fuel America Patriots Blend. Does not have that citrusiness. It's a little bit more of a full flavor throughout the whole taste, throughout the whole sip.
Yeah.
Settling, I think, I don't really taste like the fruitiness and the bitterness kind of mix well to kind of cancel each other out. I don't really feel like there's like a sweetness at the end.
Before you taste it, it smells like it could be a sweet coffee, but it doesn't really turn out that way once you taste it. So
this is a little bit about the Honduras Manos de Mujer. It was grown in the La Paz region of Honduras. Actually, the grower of it too is it's the women coffee producers of the CAMSA Co-op.
CAMSA Co-op.
Jamie, can you look that up?
Yeah, we need a Jamie.
We do.
Anybody who's
Jamie.
listening and wants to be a Jamie.
We have lots of questions that need answering in real time. Siri is not fast enough.
I need your fingers on the keyboard, por favor.
Yeah, it's also the altitude here. You might find this interesting. You see this?
15, 20 meters. So is that about, what is that, 4,000 feet?
Yeah, so very high altitude.
So it is pretty
coffee,
high, yeah. That's surprising. I didn't think Honduras had that many mountains or any, is it?
Well, I think along that range, right, like the Andes,
okay.
right, that go through, and they kind of, I think that
they
tectonic...
start in Central America, the San Andreas Fault?
Well, listen, I can't tell you for sure. It's like I'm kind of using context clues. I think that like there's a tectonic plate that like kind of runs along the side. So there's mountains in all of those kind of Central America regions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. We learn something new every day.
Have you noticed anything so far with those very high elevation coffees? I think I'm starting to notice something identifiable about them, but I want to see what you think.
I feel like and I don't know if this is the right word for it, but I feel like as the coffees from the higher elevations, they kind of taste more distinct. And what I mean by that is you can tell it's not a typical cup of coffee. It's a bad description. I know it's terrible, but it just tastes like it's extra. You know what I'm saying? It tastes extra.
So what I've noticed is that the lower elevation coffees that we've tried, which are not many, or even the blends, because this is what's called a single origin.
So it's all from the same bean, all from the same place.
Yeah.
It's a pure blood.
Yes, yeah, thoroughbred.
No
right?
mudbloods.
Exactly. And but these coffees, I find that in the sip and when you're drinking them, they really hold the flavor. Like there's not much dissipation or separation from the initial kick of flavor. Like again, the bite, if you will.
Yeah.
There's not much separation from that to the end of the sip, as far as like it being an intense, very much like present flavor.
Sure. Okay.
I find that the lower elevation coffees, they tend to kind of
dissipate.
Yeah, they dissipate. They lose their luster.
Let's make a hypothesis.
Okay.
Can we hypothesize that these higher elevation coffees are gonna essentially hold their own against cannabis when we pair them together? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
They're gonna keep their flavors, and you're gonna be able to kind of taste them together. Versus those other coffees where, like, by the time you're lighting up, maybe the tastes already have gone from your mouth.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, we'll probably be able to test them better together. I agree with that because
we'll get we'll be.
Yeah, because we smoke fucking gas on this show.
Yeah,
so the coffee needs to be the coffee needs to be
just as high test. Yeah. Shit. I know it's got a lot of caffeine because I had a long day at work and I was kind of dragging on my way over here.
Yeah.
And I'm few 4, 5, 6 sips into this coffee and I'm perked up.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm buzzing. Boys are buzzing.
So the grower of this coffee, the women coffee producers of the CAMSA Co-op, a little bit of history of them. The CAMSA is a coffee producer society based in Marcala, La Paz, Honduras, that proposes economic, social, and environmental objectives as a strategy to reduce poverty and to promote sustainable development. It was founded in 2001. It grew out of an initiative of the Rural Business Development Foundation. 60 producers in Marcala, 12 women and 48 men came together as the founding members of COMSA with the goal of directly exporting their coffee production. In 2018, it has grown to more than 1,200 farmers.
Shit.
You know,
Farmers Guild of Honduras.
Yeah, it seems like I've noticed there's like conglomerates of these farmers and these growers that seem to work together to secure like business, to make sure like.
Well, I think it's my theory is I think it's because a lot of these farmers were getting exploited by people coming in, I think, and like if they're all working together and setting their price, so they can't somebody can't come in and fuck them over. That's my theory, at least, because I feel like obviously with like colonialism and like across the world and things like that, like during those times, like things kind of even after, like, you know, things kind of stayed relatively the same for a while, and then so I feel like it's not out of the realm of possibilities that a lot of these farmers' families and ancestors were probably taken advantage of by European settlers, maybe.
Well, even if we want to bring it into like, you know, in country. Let's say, you know, if you're a farmer exporting, let's say you're fairly big, right?
Sure.
Let's say, you know, you are exporting to America, but you're one farmer who has a big operation and the cartel approaches you, you know, hey, you're going to ship our drugs or
your coffee.
You're going to do this, you know what I mean? Or you're going to give us a cut of this. And I feel like
coffee beans, you ship cocaine now.
Yeah, you know, and so part of me thinks that maybe it's like a unionization of these farmers to kind of keep themselves protected and kind of actually, and just kind of be like known, you know, like, okay, like this is an entity, like this is an organization.
Like that's what I was getting at. It's like they're like too big to take advantage of. If that's like, you know what I mean?
To go with exactly with what you were saying. Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And, guys, I just want to actually even bring it back to Yup. They have a interesting little tidbit about their roaster, and that is the actual machine itself. So we're learning, you know, something new all the time here on the C3 podcast. So this I found very interesting as far as the roaster is concerned. It's called the Jopper 15 Kilo. So a little bit about this. We roast on a custom-built, fully manually adjustable double-wall drum roaster from Portugal. Shout out Portugal.
Shout out the Portuguese.
Portuguese.
And espresso.
It roasts in small batches, about 30 pounds at a time, which means we can give lots of love and attention to every roast. So I guess 30 pounds at a time.
Probably not a lot.
Probably not a lot,
no.
Right? Yeah. The double-walled drum design helps prevent bean scorching, while chaff is continually whisked away during the roasting process, avoiding burnt, bitter, or off flavors. Manual roasting offers us full control over a number of variables such as airflow, temperature, drum speed during every stage of the roast. This allows us to customize a roast profile to the unique characteristics of each bean variety and crop, delivering a wonderful nuance, complexity, and depth of flavor in the final product. The coffee in your cup. Little quips there.
Yeah, dude. It's like it's almost like we're plugging these guys.
Is this like, the PBS of coffee?
Yeah, shit.
Yeah.
Why don't you get Dave Attenborough?
No, we like these guys. These guys are cool. Yeah. But no, I think that's the thing about the roaster that interests me is that, and I've noticed this researching other places, just kind of learning a little bit more, is like these vintage or old machine roasters that are smaller and more contained are like sought after, like, and they're like not new machines. They're like old machines that are from like the 1950s and shit like that, you know? So, yeah. But like we were talking with Farmer Jeff, right? And his cannabis product and how the attention to detail makes you feel more secure.
Yeah.
You know, it's like little things like this with local roasters that it makes me feel good. It's like, wow, like how much care really went into this bag. Like,
which, yeah, we've said it before. I think things are better when you got less hands in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
More attention to detail. People are more likely to be held accountable. You know what I mean? There's less fingers being pointed when mistakes are made, and so less mistakes are made. That's what I think is when we see these small companies.
Yeah, and a little bit on the outset here too. While it kind of cools down, I'm kind of getting like I am, as it cools down, I am getting a little bit more of a citrusy taste.
Okay.
A little bit of like a kind of appley, like an appley, so like a bitter apple, like a Granny Smith apple.
Like
almost.
a granny.
Yeah.
All right,
guys, that's Yup Coffee Roasters.
Yeah.
Honduras, Manos de Mujer, Hands of Women. Oh, that is available at the River Valley Co-op. I've also seen it at Big Y. So if you guys want to support it, it's out of Florence, Mass. Go grab a cup of their coffee. And yeah, I think you might like it.
Powerful taste. It's got powerful taste.
Hell yeah. But I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, I mean, definitely am buzzing from the coffee, buzzing from this stogie, you know.
Oh,
all right,
stogie.
some GG4,
Oh,
GG.
So we're going to move on to the second part of the show, and that is the cannabis part of the show.
Arguably my favorite part of the show.
Arguably. It's up for debate.
Well, yeah, it's up for debate. But
It's obvious. No.
well, here's the thing: is I like all of the consciousness talk we do, and I like getting deep, obviously, because we're so stoned. But
Right.
because we're so stoned, I feel like sometimes we're not as effective as we could be.
Effectiveness. How does one measure effectiveness? See,
You know what? I guess you're right. Maybe that's just bullshit. I'm just
well, no, you know what it is? It's like, I think
Maybe-
it eases the pain, like getting stoned before talking about some deep shit eases the pain of sounding like a fucking idiot.
true. I guess so. And that's exactly like you ever see the Family Guy episode when Lois and Peter are just getting stoned?
Oh,
and
they're
playing
in like a
music?
Mumford and Sons band or some shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they think they're fucking awesome, but they're just high. And then like
They're smashing the instrument, not even playing.
Yeah, they're naked.
In their minds, they're like in heaven playing on guitars.
But they're fucking terrible. Yeah. So in my head, like that's like my worst nightmare is that like I just get so high that I'm just like a fucking idiot.
That's okay, man, because every time I listen to our fucking podcast, I hear us playing the guitar in heaven, all right?
All right, I like that.
All right, guys, we're lighting up the GG number 4.
Yeah.
This was, where did you get this, Ian?
The Verb is the herb. It's a recreational dispensary in Easthampton, right in downtown there. They're recreational only, just a heads up for all my med card holders. If you go there, you will pay the 20% state tax, which, I mean, this eighth cost me $70. I'm not proud to admit that, but I did it for science and for the show. So
Okay, so a little
steep.
You're a little unhappy about that.
Well, yeah.
Well, so you're medical, right? So that's
and I feel like the steps were like, the weed was legal medically first before recreationally. So like, it would only make sense that I think like dispensaries should have to cater to the medical community as well. But I get that things can be different sometimes. I just think that it's not good for business for them because like somebody like me, I don't really have an incentive to go back. Right. Unless they have a strain that we want to try for the show, I probably won't be back. And you know what I mean? Unless, but like I said, why am I going to go there when I can go to any other one that's gonna honor my medical card? And so that's just a little
okay,
little bit what would bother me about it. But the weed itself was from wasn't grown. So the Verb is the herb doesn't actually grow any of their own weed. They curate a playlist of weeds from different sources throughout the state. From what I saw, they all looked like Massachusetts grow ops. I'm not 100% sure, but that's from all the names I recognize that they're all Mass. So this is from Sierra Naturals, and it's out, like I said earlier in the podcast, it's from out east. So I don't know, maybe something to look forward to if you guys are out east and you're in the area and you see a Sierra Naturals. That's what we're trying today. Some GG4 vial.
Yeah, and this is a high THC count.
Yeah, it's an indica hybrid, so it's probably we're gonna have to drink more coffee after just to keep us going for the rest of the day. But
a good old get me up. Yeah, 28% THC.
Oh, that tastes fantastic.
Let's get right into this. Let's see.
Yeah, so the look, I'll say what it looks like. It looks like, I don't know if any of you guys were watching the Euros, but it looks like Phil Foden's hair. So I don't know if you guys know who Phil Foden is. He's a attacker who plays for the England national team, and he's just got frosted gray hair. And
we might have to superimpose this bud onto his hair.
We're going to put Foden in the thumbnail, and we're going to Photoshop my face over him for the thumbnail. So you guys know who he is. But this is what the weed looks like. It just looks like the top of Phil Foden's head is just covered in like white crystals. Not a lot of hairs on it. Shade the leaves, are they range from really light colors to really dark colors. Take a look at that, Josh. It looks really nice. I think it's very different than any of the strains we really smoked on the show so far. So I'm happy I've got it. I think it's one of the better tasting ones too. How do you like the taste?
So it's a smooth, like it's a soft smoke. Like it's not like I took a rip, and that was not harsh at all. Really light,
smooth,
bright on the senses. Kind of gassy, like and when I say gassy, like a diesely, you know what I mean? What do you think?
I agree. I think it's very smooth. Like I could fucking one hit the rest of this joint, just power suck it.
Yeah.
And not cough once.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. Like I'm surprised at the smokability of this is just, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, and you know what I've noticed too is if you kind of taste it better, blow it out of your nose. I feel like sometimes you get a better like overall taste. And this tastes, to me it tastes like almost like and smell like lavendery. Like it's like
flower,
like herby taste,
herby,
floral, very it's very florally.
Yeah, that ties into the light, the light fluttery flavor.
I kind of I get when I'm smoking it, I get nostalgic of like early springtime.
Ooh, try it with the coffee. That's solid.
That is good together.
That's like
they bounce off each other really good.
It tastes like
two very different tastes, but they don't clash.
It kind of tastes like buttered toast, like buttery, like a buttery taste if you add them. Like buttered toast sounds so bland, but like the flavor of butter that it add that butter adds to some kind of food. Yeah.
When in doubt, always add butter to your food because it's gonna make it better.
Yeah, so Verb and the Herb, so you're saying dispensary-wise, like, not really recommended for medical, but one thing I did notice is that when I went there, now I don't have a medical card, so you go there, I went there for recreational, they have many different growers. Like, they're not tied into one particular, it seems like
and that's what I like, and I'll
selection.
Say, so I was kind of being hard on them before. I'll say this, so I'll give them a dino point right here. I'll give them a brownie point. They do have a lot of different cultivators. And I think it's because they don't grow their own and they're not tied to any particular one. So they probably have a little more freedom when it comes to like their, I say playlists, when they're curating their playlists, you know what I mean? Their weed playlists.
I'm glad you checked them out because, guys, one thing that we're going to start doing as far as the cannabis section of the show is I got a list from the good old paper Valley Advocate. That's right. I saw some
PVA, bitches.
And I'm going to post the Valley Advocate. I'm going to post this on our Instagram too so you guys can see. So they have a list of 25 currently open local dispensaries in Massachusetts and Vermont. So if you guys want to see some of the different, places that you can really get your cannabis from, we're going to post a picture. It's got all the addresses, all the information of them, and we're going to try to go down that list and go to all 25 and tell us, tell you guys what we think.
Well, and if some of you guys get to them before we do, fucking drop it in a comment. Tell us that we need to go there. We need to smoke this. We need to smoke that. And we're going to smoke it. That's a promise.
The onset from the GG really starting to get in my head.
Yeah, my eyes are getting heavy.
Yeah, it's getting my head
that
space.
That indica eyes, yo. I'm like,
It's not holding back, dude.
No,
it's not.
I don't know. Should we start talking consciousness before we...
let's...
Before I turn into a babbling brook over here?
All right, guys. We're going to step right into the third segment of the show. Now, bear with us because it's a tough one.
It's a tough topic, and it's one that like I'm pretty sure I know my opinion on it, but like it's like every day, like I can see how somebody could say the other. I could see, you know what I mean? I kind of bounce back and forth with, but I'm still kind of rooting for one side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean this is a discussion on free will,
free fucking will, free willy,
and a little bit about whether it exists, what it actually may be. And, we're kind of battling with this in real time because The more I thought about it, Ian, the more I wondered. Like I've always been like, yeah, I have free fucking will. Like, what do you mean? Like,
and then yeah. So do we have free will until things like pandemics happen and things happen and like these external things that happen and. You know, how many people had their free will crushed and had big plans for the year 2020?
Yeah.
And then COVID-19 was like, you know, how many of you had a wedding plan? How many of you had a loved one die you couldn't say goodbye to? You know what I mean? And, you know, if you had free will, you'd have been able to do all those things. That's like, you know what I'm saying? In a perfect world. Like,
yeah. Yep.
You know, so this is a good kind of. I didn't really plan on bringing that up, but it kind of just came to the top of my head, like when we started talking.
No, see, that's great because that's such really, really.
And I think it's something that everybody listening can relate to. You know what I mean? Because some of the other concepts we might talk about, maybe not everybody's going to kind of. It's not going to affect them, or they're not going to like really. Maybe they might not grasp it, or you know, or it might not resonate with them the same as like something like COVID, which is something we all went through as like a collective.
Yeah, it's the total relatable experience because we did have to all go through it, but it's a great example of how we are out of control of so many events that are happening around us. Now, as I started to think about what is out of my control, like what can I control, I realized that this idea of control equates to a feeling of freedom and like free will sort of.
Right.
So I kind of am coming around, and I don't know if you feel in a similar way, but it's kind of both. Like we're kind of, we have free will and we don't.
It's circumstantial.
Well, think about like, so in the physical world, right? Like in the pandemic, for example, there was a chain of events that was set off that was totally out of our control that impacted our lives in so many ways and forced us to make so many decisions. Now, even though those circumstances and things were happening that forced decisions to our life, like events that require action, we possibly have the control or the free will to act one way or another on these decisions, on these choices.
Yeah, right. And that's what I was saying before. And it's like it's so hard, and you can go back and forth on like, you know, it's like, oh, I don't have free will, and then you can just like, you know, I can knock my coffee off the table, and then, you know, to feel like I have control. And yeah, that's in a way that's free will, but is it free will in the big picture, in the sense that, you know what I mean? Like we weren't put on this earth to knock coffee cups off tables, but I think that that free will is bigger than that, like as an idea, as like a concept. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So,
well, if we didn't have free will, right? What would that necessarily mean? Would that mean that, let's say, if you don't have free will and everything is already predetermined,
right?
Nothing you do matters, like because it was all fated to happen. Do you lose a subjective morality? Like, do you lose the ability to say, I'm going to act morally right because my actions matter towards something greater? Or would you, like, if nothing you did mattered and everything was predetermined, would you just like lose confidence in acting morally? I feel like that's an interesting question, because in that situation, how would you act? Like if you knew nothing that you did mattered,
honestly, that's why I want to go back to something you said. Like, just because it's not your free will doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. I don't think, in the grand scheme of things, because I think maybe what matters is even outside the scope of our understanding, and if it's important, you know what I mean. So, like, you might not think it matters. Just so, like, let's say you don't have free will and everything, and like you said, oh, you don't have free will, so nothing you do matters. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not to say because you don't have free will that what you do doesn't matter. What it means is just what you do might matter and might be part of a bigger plan that's just out of your realm of understanding. Do you know what I'm saying? And like that's like some deep shit maybe, but you get what I'm trying to say?
You're talking some like bigger plan shit.
Yeah,
like,
I'm talking some
beyond the scope of our understanding.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Things and forces driving things that, you know what I mean?
Like
even in shitty people, like you know, there's like stories about, you know, how like if certain terrible tragedies didn't happen. Like good things came out of tragedies, you know what I mean, and things like that. So that's not to say people would say, oh, like that's a terrible thing that happened, like that shouldn't happen, and that doesn't matter. But like it does, because like it's catalyst for like so much other beautiful things. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. So when you bring in the possibility of free will, it does create nearly infinite possibilities as far as like decisions and outcomes.
Does free will have to do with the butterfly effect, would you say?
Well, a little bit, yeah. Like your actions would
like ripple through, like based on, you know what I mean? So, because it kind of has to do with free will. Like, if you could go back and like change something and know it would drastically change something, do you think it would have changed, or do you think that the universe would have found a way to just make it like the Oedipus complex, like the story of Oedipus, right?
So this is a great example. So Oedipus tried to avoid his fate because there was a prophecy. Yeah, this is just a story. This is a myth. There was a prophecy that
Greek mythology.
That he would kill his father and marry his mother. And so the father left Oedipus out to die in the woods, thinking like, okay, I'll just leave him out here in the woods and he'll die, and then that'll never be fulfilled. Another family, like two couple, like found him and raised him as their own, and he thought that was their parents, or that was his parents, and he knew about the prophecy, so he left his home, his adopted home,
right?
And thinking, I don't want to kill my father, I don't want to marry my mother, because who would want to ever do that? You know,
it's a weird thing to do,
yeah.
Even in ancient Greece.
Like, and so he ends up like leaving, and on his journey, like, you know, while he's traveling, in a fit of rage, he ends up like killing somebody, like a traveler, that's actually his father,
right?
And he doesn't know it. Yeah. And then he ends up marrying the widowed woman because he feels guilty or whatever, you know,
right.
It
goes to console her,
and that's his mother.
Together.
You know, so it's like
So basically, that story says you can't avoid fate, and pretty much says like everything's predetermined before you, right?
Right. That's
So here's the thing: if there was free will, in a world like if there was free will, Oedipus's father would have just killed him.
Well, I think what it really is it's
because why leave it open to the possibility?
The lesson in the story is no matter what you do, there's so many outcomes and so many things happening in the world that things are really out of your control because you don't have all the knowledge that you know what I mean. Like you don't know everything.
You're not privileged enough to know.
So how are you supposed to act? You know, like how are you supposed to know how to act or react to these things?
Right.
And it just happened that way. Like he tried to avoid it, but like he just has so little control in the world. And so, but my argument is this, right? Like remember I was saying it can be both.
Right.
So you have free will and you don't. So the example would be like the physical world. Somebody hits a baseball, right? They toss it up and they hit a baseball and you're in the outfield. Now the world around you, things out of your control have caused you to come in contact with an event that you must act on. And that's either you catch the ball or you're just going to let the ball drop. And so if I'm acting on that impulse, if I'm saying I'm going to go catch that ball or if I'm not going to go catch that ball, internally, like having that dialogue, that's like where I think the starting point of the choice would be.
Right.
And then the muscles in action, the reaction, all of that, like after the fact is still kind of in this predetermined. Right.
Here's another trippy thought. Who knows if that internal dialogue is even you? That free will is your decision. Maybe you're just the observation of that decision.
Well, that's a tough one too, because I think about how, like, if you don't know what you're going to think next, right?
Right.
So if you don't know what you're going to think, and a thought comes into your head,
feeding off outside stimulus to kind of
like where did that thought come from? Like originate? Like you didn't know,
like an organic.
Yeah, you didn't know you were going to think that. Like I didn't know that I was going to think just now to pick up this. You know, like it's.
I feel like that happens a lot when you're on like psychedelics. Like if you're on mushrooms or something, like you'll just think of like you'll get like I feel like more organic information, maybe like you're getting these random thoughts. So I don't know, but as far as it ties into free will, like it's tough. It's really tough.
So I need you to answer my original question though.
All right, go ahead, say it.
So in a world where free will didn't exist, would you still act morally? Would you still have?
I'd like to think I would still
act. So what I'm trying to get at is like, would you still be a good person?
Yeah, I like to think so.
Okay, why?
because I'm not that like confrontational of a person. I feel like I'm pretty empathetic, you know what I mean? So like I feel like I'd be more sensitive to people's feelings, you know what I'm saying?
So even in a world where if you knew none of your actions mattered and you still acted morally, like subjective morality, I think that's a little bit of evidence that like people, like humans, could be inherently good. You know, because you're telling me that nothing you do fucking matters, you know? But it could also say that like maybe you're selfish.
Well, that's
like,
what I have a theory about that, and like
or people are selfish.
I have a theory about that, about people like that are serial killers. I feel like people that are like serial killers are people that realize that they come to the realization that we don't have control, and it fucking scares the fuck out of them. So they do whatever they can to make themselves feel like they have the free will. And what's more free will than like going out and murdering somebody? Yeah. Or like doing some vile shit.
Well,
you know what I mean?
There's easier ways to simulate free will.
I know. Well, I'm just saying, like that's what I
right,
think.
But that's
like,
their psychos. They're fucking crazy, so they think that
like,
they have to do that.
They have to like gain control somehow, and it's not necessarily just serial killers. It could be an addict. Mm-hmm. It could be somebody that's how they manifest control in their life, and it could be, it could come out in a million different ways. But I feel like subconsciously, like a lot of people know that like we're not necessarily just along for the ride, but we're kind of, you know, predestined to do shit. Like,
yeah, I feel like we're halfway between like free will and instinct.
Right. I like that. Free, like, yeah, I could say that. Like, what's
because you think like what
separates that? What's the dividing line between?
Well, if you think like pre-human, like prefrontal cortex, you know, like all that shit. Like,
you think it's the like, development of consciousness, like with the development of consciousness that we kind of step out of the realm of like survival and the world telling us what to do, to kind of having a half control about what
right
we
because
do.
Instinct is more like impulse, like you just act on them, like a lion, you know, is subject to, you know, the conditions of the Serengeti, which forces the, you know, zebra to go to a watering hole, so that it has an instinct to hunt there. Like, it's not making the decision, it's just instinct. It's just you know, and then the separation of consciousness between instinct is like, we still don't control where the thoughts maybe are coming from, or like, you know, how they're received, but we can have enough wherewithal to, you know, meet them halfway and have the thoughts incoming, decide how to react to them, and have enough free will that way to separate from what was instinct, you know, a previous, you know, version of ourselves. Yeah,
no, that's definitely something that's probably pretty legit. You could probably say there's a correlation between that development in consciousness and that step in evolution outside of living for survival, living instinctually, and now having dabbled in some control of our own futures, essentially, because that's what we want, right?
Yeah,
that's what we want with free will is. We want to determine what we do now and what we do in the future. Yeah,
I think a lot of it has to do with like just how things make us feel as well. Like just how it makes us feel. Maybe we wouldn't make bad decisions just because like we'd be in shitty living conditions or something, right. You know what I mean? Or, you know, we'd just be making like mistakes and shit, you know, like so rather than like having our quote unquote lives together, you know. But like things not mattering in the grand scheme of things, I guess maybe it's still easy to have subjective morality and be a good person and vice versa. But I think I'm okay with, I think I can accept like just being like at that halfway point. Like I think I can accept not having full control, but like also trying to gain more control as I get older, maybe more inwardly like conscious and, you know, so I can accept these thoughts and react to them in a way that is favorable for me, you know, right. not in a way that like, you know, it's just so like, reactionary. Like if you're
like a Buddhist monk, like say, like you could argue like a Buddhist monk is somebody like, now just because I'm going to relate to the story, you know, you ever heard of that story about that monk that was protesting, I think like some war, and something, I can't remember what he was protesting, but he lit himself on fire. I think he's like a cover of like Rage Against the Machine album or something.
Yeah.
You know that monk, he sets himself on fire.
Yeah.
He set himself on fire and didn't scream. Right? 99.999% of people are going to set themselves on fire, and they're going to, even if they have in their mind, they're like, I'm not going to scream, I'm not going to scream. Like, you think they're going to fucking scream? Probably. But like you said, like, I think there's something to training your mind to get past that point, and you could be like that monk to where you that's like an ultimate free will move right there. Think about it, right? Or is that kind of extreme?
That's pretty fucking extreme, bro. Like, that's, well, so you think about this, though, right? What are all of the circumstances around that monk that brought him to that point, right? There's a war going on in the country. There's something there to protest. There's an event. There's a decision. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so all of these things were happening around him, and maybe, like, his decision, think about this, like, was he really controlling all these thoughts and feelings about the war that were coming into his mind? You know, like, how did that affect him and his surroundings? And then for him to be confronted with the decision to do that is maybe his choice. It's a very extreme example, like, to take, you know, but like,
I don't know why I went right to that. Like, I can't even.
Well, like, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
All right, ask me.
Do you think he would do it again? Like, no. Like, well, maybe. Like,
I think somebody like that, he probably would.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe the former.
Yeah, I mean,
you gotta be pretty.
You gotta pretty much have your mind pretty made up to, like, do something like that. And just in the way he did it, he sat there and just fucking sat there. Yeah. From what that's the story, right? And he's just pretty much burned to death. Yeah, I don't know. So we we traversed a lot through this podcast, from the coffee to the monk on fire.
Yeah, I think it's the idea of, like, how much control can you get, maybe that's why people are greedy. Maybe because, like, so all right, if we're equating, like, the feeling of free will to control, then the more control you have, the more power you need. The more power, the more money, the more greed. You know, you need more. It's greed. You know, and so, like, that makes you probably feel more in control because you just have the assets to do whatever you want. You know, you have liquid funds. Like, it's just one of those things where maybe that's where the root of greed comes from is wanting to feel like we are free or have the free will to do whatever we want.
Honestly, I would argue, maybe I'm crazy, I would argue, like, in some ways, people that live paycheck to paycheck could be more free too, in a sense of, like, I'm not saying that, like, not necessarily that, maybe that's not what I meant in the sense of, like, obviously, like, economic freedom, but, like, there's something that I think is, like, I romanticize at least about being, like, a fucking, like Call of the Wild, you know, like fucking, that's like Supertramp, right? What's his name? The kid who goes out to Alaska. Like, that's something to me that's, like, there's, like, a freedom in that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Outside of, like, material possessions. I'm not saying there's anything glamorous about living in poverty and, like, but, like, if you do it right and, like, take control and, like, you know what I mean? I think that's where somebody with a little more, like, sense of...
Oh, yeah. What he was... Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was on a journey. That's a really great example. You know, he was trying to prove it that, like...
He didn't need... You know, he was trying to break the program.
Yeah, it was a new identity for him to discover, yeah.
Like, you know, he had the free will to choose to do all these things, and, like, somebody like that, I feel like, was exercising their free will to the fullest. Yeah. And there's something romantic about that versus somebody who's just, like, a billionaire who's a CEO of 4 different companies and flies to space.
Yeah, well,
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, it's a good example.
Not knocking the space billionaires like everyone else is. I'm just saying, like, I'm all for people going to space, but, like, I'm just comparing the two and thinking, like, if I could be one or the other, I'd be
Alexander Steve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that story is actually a really great example of like the lengths we will go to prove that we have some sort of free will.
Yeah.
You know, some sort of choice about how we at least experience these events happening around us. And, you know, like, again, I think I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with it. Either way, you know, I'm fine either way. I think if we, in the end, like, we have ultimate free will, like, I'm going to make the best decisions I can and do what I want to do with my life. And if it turns out that I just am under the illusion that I have free will and that like I'm being moved around by external forces that are beyond my control and out of my sight and sound, then what's the difference? Do you get what I mean? In the end, it all is going to seem the same. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over it is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me neither. You know, like, because like there's a lot of things happening around me right now that seem pretty awesome. Like I'm happy with life. And yeah, I guess it's, you know what? It's one of those things. It's such a big thing that like it's hard to dwell on, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
so,
well, it's
so I don't think I'll talk about it for a long time.
Right. Yeah. No, it does get you thinking though. Yeah. Shit.
That was a good one, man. Hey, guys, we're going to wrap up the show now. Thanks so much for joining us today. And yeah, that was a great conversation, Ian.
Yeah.
And great coffee, too.
Great coffee, great cannabis. Hey, check out our Insta page. We got a new logo. Shout out Matt Steck creating a logo for us. Really appreciate it. Check out Matt Steck's Instagram. I think it's just at Matt Steck.
Oh, and next episode, guys, we will have Mark Bashaw on. He is a local Western Mass glass blower.
Dude has got some serious talent. I was checking out his Instagram page the other day, and this guy is legit. He's got some beautiful pieces. If you're into glass or just art in general, like I think you guys will really enjoy a lot of his work. I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, guys, and we'll see you next time.